Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Bin, and welcome to the call today. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's a few minutes after 2, and we want to make the best use of your time. This is Produce Safety Educators call number 26. I'm not sure if there's anybody new on the call or not, but all participants are usually muted. I think today Gretchen has given everybody the opportunity to unmute yourselves because we are going to have a time for questions in one of the slides. It is being recorded and the notes are shared via the listserv and on our website after the call. There is a section of the website dedicated to this group, and so there's a copy of notes and slides from past meetings as well, again, for anybody else that is new. So first, we're going to start with some PSA updates, and just to get everybody on the same page and fill you in on some details that have changed. The first thing I'd like to do is introduce our new PSA team member. Her name is Connie Fisk. She will be the Northwest Extension Associate for the Produce Safety Alliance. She is located in Nebraska. Her contact information, email is on the screen right now. We're working on her phone. We should have that worked out this week, and then we'll have her phone number so you can contact her. And at that point, we will make sure to update the website as soon as we have all that information. I'd like to allow Connie a few moments to introduce herself so you can hear her and hear a little bit about herself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, hear you great.
Awesome. My name is Connie Fisk. As Betsy said, I am based out of Plattsmouth, Nebraska. For the last almost 3 years, I've been an extension educator with Nebraska Extension, focused on regional food systems. So I helped growers with production problems, marketing, worked a lot with the local food system, different food policy councils, things like that. Prior to that, I taught at a community college. I taught food science, microbiology, and human nutrition, as well as horticulture, which is what my degrees are in. Before that, I was in North Carolina. I was a statewide extension associate for muscadine grapes. So some of you I've already met before in that capacity. While I was there, I got my PhD in horticultural science. My other degrees are from Oregon State University, where I majored in both horticulture and food science. I'm originally from Oregon, so I'm looking forward to working in the region.
Great, thank you, Connie. I appreciate that introduction. We'll let you guys ask, anybody have any questions they want to ask of Connie while we're at this juncture? Okay, I don't see any hands going up. So moving on, what we want to share are some updates of Produce Safety Alliance productivity. We call it PSA by the numbers. What we've decided to do is conduct quarterly reports so that we're pulling down this information with some frequency, but not so frequent that it drives everybody in the office crazy. We are sharing the full reports at the website. You can see the link there, and it will be in the PDF when we post these notes. One of the things we did want to talk about is we've been contacted by several states. As you know, many states are trying to create a database of their growers, and we've been contacted to provide information on people that attend our trainings. We do not share course participant information, nor does AFDO. We are willing to share with you the number of people we've trained by state or region, to share that information for reporting purposes. For those of you that are doing trainings, of course, you can get some evaluation information from us. But I did want to discuss that we will not share course participant information, addresses, names, that kind of information, because we need to protect the privacy of those that attend our trainings. So again, I don't know if there are any questions about that, but did want to make that policy clear. Okay, moving on with the slides. Sorry, I'm trying to learn how to advance these slides because I'm trying to take control of Gretchen's laptop.
Hey, Betsy,
Yeah.
this is Lana Nwadike. Can I ask a quick question on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just to be clear, like, so if we, if we're hosting, K-State is hosting a workshop, we can use that information ourselves for, sharing with our state regulators, but we can't ask you for it, right?
Yes, and I think you should be careful about sharing people's information without their permission.
Right. Yeah. No, I should have mentioned that, but yes, no, that I'm very well aware of. Yeah.
Right. So, we obviously don't have dominion over the information you have. In some states, like for instance, in the state of Florida, they have sunshine laws that make their universities subject to FOIA and subject to Freedom of Information Act searches. So I know it's different in every state. I just wanted to mention it because we have gotten requests and we will not share that information.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? Because this is important and again, it's different in every state, so I don't want to make any assumptions. Okay. Next, oh, there's how you advance it. Okay. Next, I want to share some information just in a table format about where we've been as of June 26, 2017. We've conducted PSA courses, train the trainer courses in 25 of the 50 states. We've had grower training courses in 36 of the states. Of course, not all those grower training courses are conducted by the PSA because there's many other lead trainers out there conducting trainings. We've conducted 31 train the trainer courses, over 1,000 participants in those courses. Average size is about 37. Conducted a total of 176 grower training courses in September. Again, that's all the lead trainers. Trained over 4,000 growers with an average course size of about 33. If we look at the trainer numbers, there's over 1,000 PSA trainers and 146 as of June lead trainers. Now, I know that has changed because that changes almost daily. The number of states with PSA trainers, 49. Number of states with lead trainers, 42. One thing I do want to mention when you look at the maps coming up, we keep a very close watch on which states have trainers, how many trainers, if they have lead trainers. And we're working really hard to make sure that every state has trainers and lead trainers. And part of the questions we're going to ask coming up are related to that. We now have had several international trainers. There's 28, there's 11 lead trainers, and there have been international grower trainings. We also just conducted our first international train the trainer, which I'll have a slide on here momentarily. And what I want to say about all these numbers is I really do want to give a shout out to the PSA team as a whole and to many of you on this call. When we look back at the last year and the launch and the delay in the launch, I think the key thing I want to say is thank you for everybody who's been such a good collaborator to make this happen. There's no way the PSA team could have made it everywhere we did without so much collaboration. So I do want to really say thank you most sincerely because we absolutely know how valuable that collaboration is to the success of the program. Okay. Oh. Anybody see that big black box there? Gretchen, could you advance the slide? I am having a hard time getting it to go. There it goes. Okay. Here's a map of the PSA grower trainings. Anywhere there's blue, we've had a grower training. The darker colors mean more trainings. We have had a couple of places that we went to in the pilot that are also included there, but have definitely made our rounds. as have our other lead trainers. Again, I want to stress that. Next slide. I'm really sorry this advancement is not working for me. Train the trainer courses. In green, again, darker green means we've had more train the trainer courses. We did have a discussion internally about whether or not there was a need to have train the trainer courses in every state, because some states have not really been asking for train the trainer courses. And I'm not really sure we need to have one in every state. Our goal really is to have trainers in every state, but it's turning out that a lot of trainers are traveling to train the trainers outside their state to get trained. So in a moment, I'm gonna sort of ask your opinion about that. Next slide here, if I can get it to go. There it is. Oh, man. As I mentioned earlier, the international efforts have started. We are collaborating with GIFSAN, the Joint Institute for Food Safety and Applied Nutrition, to organize and conduct some international trainings. There is also a group called the Produce International Partnership, abbreviated as the PIP, that's going to help identify international training needs and adapt resources. There will be announcements about that coming soon. We've been working behind the scenes to get some of the structure in place to announce that. As I mentioned, Gretchen and Donna were down in Kingston, Jamaica with Jim Rushing from GIFSAN to conduct the first international Train the Trainer last week. And groups like FAST have a lot of training scheduled coming up. So we're starting to work, you know, with our hand in some of that international training. In terms of PSA Materials, we are working on a version 2.0. Major type updates include things like correction and typos. So those of you that have sent us edits or have told us like, PS, you misspelled that, or the apostrophe's in the wrong place, that's the kind of thing we're fixing. We're also looking to clarify some of the produce safety rule requirements or section symbols. I know there were a few slides that people commented that we needed a section symbol and there wasn't one there. We're also looking at highlighting some new resources and references. So those are all works that are going on right now. We do not have a hard date for when that will be complete, but we are working to try and hopefully get it in place before winter grower meetings. Right now we have materials available in English and Spanish. The English version is the 3-hole punch per this group's opinion so many months ago to print it that way. We did bind the Spanish version because we got feedback from that group that they preferred it bound. All of those are available through the bookstore. I also do want to mention here that we are working on translation of other translation into other languages. And as soon as we have information to share on that, we will share it. But I do anticipate there will be other languages available at some point. I wouldn't say in the near future, but I would say it is something we're working on. So what I'd like to do here for a moment is stop and ask you guys with what our plans are coming up. Is there a need to have a train the trainer in an area we haven't identified? Is anybody having trouble organizing one, or anything you want to let us know? I also want to open it up to this idea that there are certain regional centers. I know NECAFS, which is the Northeast Center to Advance Food Safety, has funding to help pay for trainers to attend the Train the Trainer and apply to be lead trainers. We've also been contacted with people who are interested in co-training with us to gain some experience. After people applied to be lead trainers and didn't get through the process, I know people have suggested they're a little gun shy to go through it. So they were interested in co-training, which brings me to the next question of, does your state have enough lead trainers? And is there anything we can do to help? So I'm going to stop yammering right now and give you guys a chance to comment or let us know how things are going.
Betsy?
Yep.
This is HL. I got on it just a wee bit late. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So with respect to the states, I noticed Missouri, and there were several states that were, that have a lot of produce that don't have any lead trainers. Are people coming in from somewhere else to do these grower training? Or are they even having grower trainings? I mean, what's going on in these states?
Yeah, I know Londa's on, and I know she does some work out there as well. So I know they do have trainings planned. I think there's a multi-state training that's planned in January, and there are people who have it. But I'm going to stop here and ask our participants from those areas if you want to chime in.
Yeah, this is Londa Nwadike, and I work for University of Missouri Extension. We actually, I think that slide that you were referring to showed, now I can't remember, that was like train the trainer sessions maybe.
Right, right.
So yeah, we actually, a lot of the Missouri people were trained over just across the border into Kansas. So we do have, I think, 18 trainers in Missouri that were trained just across the border in Kansas. And we already had one up in St. Joe, and there was another training that was done in August, and we do have quite a few scheduled coming up. I can send you, I'll put the link to our website there. So we do have, I think, 4 or 5 scheduled right now, or maybe even 6, I don't remember. But anyway, so yeah, I think like Betsy, your comment earlier that, maybe we don't necessarily need to train the trainer in every state because they can go to a train the trainer just across the state line in another state.
Yeah, and I should have mentioned that again. This data was ended in June, and a lot has gone on this summer to fill in more of those white patches, and again, those are just the trainings, not necessarily representative of where the trainers are, because we do have trainers in 49 out of the 50 states based on the June numbers, and like I said, the lead trainers, we keep track of that, and I think there's only like 6 states that don't have a lead trainer now. I'm making that number up. I can picture the box on our team notes, but I can't count the numbers that are there. But any other questions?
Can I clarify this is down that Missouri does have 3 lead trainers listed on our website. So Missouri is.
Thanks, Don.
I'm just wondering because we can be in Missouri in like 30 minutes,
right,
or Kansas in 30 minutes, or Oklahoma in 30 minutes. So if there was a real issue there and schedules worked out, we could certainly assist. But if those states have added them, then why?
Right.
But still, it might be a lot closer for us to go help out in. At Joplin or Carthage or somewhere than it would be to drive down from Columbia. So
right, and I know a lot of states are doing a lot of collaborative training, so I think that fits well in with what we're hearing about anyway.
I've got another question that kind of builds onto that, or is a companion to it. How are the states? Okay, the state departments of agriculture got money is it for sending people to trainings or what? Or is it to get their people trained so they can more effectively, for lack of a better word, regulate and see people are complying with FSMA? What was that link with the departments of agriculture, and how does that fit in with our centers? I'm still confused about that.
Well, I think that's fair to be confused about it because I think each state is doing things a little differently. So my understanding is there were 2 sections. There was a part A and a part B, and one part was focused on education and outreach, and one part was focused on, I think, sort of enforcement implementation. But I think each state is slightly different about how they outlined what they were going to do. So some of it was probably about educating their Department of Ag and Markets people, where some states have put money towards educating growers. So I think it's a state by state basis, and I don't feel real comfortable saying a whole lot about the specifics, because my understanding is they're different. One of the things we could do, and I thought we already had a meeting with Bob Ehart on just a little bit ago to talk about what they were doing at the states. But if there's enough confusion about it, we can certainly return to that topic or talk to NASDA, and they can come highlight, more specific.
Yeah, I thought maybe even NASDA may have we have a NASDA rep on our board. Maybe we could, if NASDA's got some compendium of what the different states are doing, that would be great, because, we're in 35 states, so.
Right. Okay, any other questions? Any other follow-ups, HL, or anybody else?
Well, I got one more question.
Okay.
I'll sneak in when you.
Go ahead.
This co-train business, we
Yep.
welcome PSA trainers to co-train with PSA staff, et cetera, et cetera. So would that be, for example, if there was a train the trainer program, let's say in Memphis, I just picked something at random,
Mm-hmm.
and we wanted to send somebody that has been through the train the trainer course to get some more specifics to bone up in a certain area. Is it, in your opinion, is it more effective to do that, or is it more effective to on-site, like if we're having one in Oklahoma City, I don't know, and there's an Oklahoma State specialist that can be there that's been through a training? Is it better to call them in, or better for us to haul everybody over there? I'm looking for efficiencies in travel funds.
Right. So my point of mentioning the building trainer capacity, which may be a little different, was that we've had people say that they're not comfortable applying to be a lead trainer. They'd like to get more training experience first. And if there are lead trainers in their state that are doing training, we really recommend people actively participate as trainers to get the experience, to get that comfort level. It's a lot of material, it's dense, and so the more trainings you do, the more comfortable you become. To your point, I think the answer is there's a lot of educators on this call with a lot of experience. And so in terms of training efficiency, if you're training somewhere and there's people like you mentioned before, like you're closer to Joplin, I absolutely would reach out to trainers in those areas to see if you can collaborate to save travel dollars and make it more efficient. So if that's what you're asking, that's what I think the answer is. But tell me if I missed the question.
No, you got most of the question. I'm just thinking of, obviously it would depend on the case, but if you were in a real crunch and you couldn't get people in enough places, you could call in, for example, someone in another state to assist you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's why we created one of the reasons why we created the directory on the website is because collaboration is a natural thing. I enjoy training with different people because everybody's take is a little different, and I learn stuff when I do that. So I think that's a good approach.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anybody else have any questions or want to let us know you need something? I thought I heard somebody chime in behind HL, but if not, I'll move on.
Everybody will want me to go back on sick leave. I asked too many questions.
I was actually happy to hear your voice, and I hope you're doing well.
You're doing great.
Good. Okay, so I'm going to move on then. If you have questions, you guys can chime in at any point. Okay. One of the things we wanted to talk about today was addressing challenges in delivering Chapter 5 And part of this is really around some of the announcements that FDA has made in 2017 regarding ag water. So in March of 2017, FDA published FDA Considering Simplifying Agricultural Water Standards, which essentially said they're thinking about changing the ag water standards. And then they came out in June and said they intended to extend compliance dates for ag water standards. And in your notes, we'll put the link to both of these, but I'm hoping people have had the chance to read these and to look at these. And they've generated some discussion with people about, well, what does this mean when we deliver Module 5? So we wanted to talk about that a little bit. In addition to these two FDA announcements, the Center for Produce Safety held an ag water testing methods colloquium in April of 2017 with input from academia, research, industry, federal agencies were there as technical advisors, and it did result in a white paper, which again we'll put the link to. The primary recommendation was about, that there should allow other EPA accepted analysis methods in addition to method 1603. But it really was an interesting discussion about what were the challenges and what are some other issues related to some of the implementation. Also related to some industry efforts, just last week, the Food Safety Magazine published an article about fixing FSMA ag water requirements. This was written by Jen McIntyre and Jim Gorney, Jen from United Fresh and Jim from PMA, talking about current water quality requirements in the produce safety rule, talking about some of the challenges there, and a recommendation to possibly reevaluate. So really this information is put forward to set the stage for this discussion, just to give you an idea of some of the stuff that's happened both from FDA's side as well as from the industry side. So, what does this say to us about how we as trainers are supposed to approach Module 5? And one of the things before we go on to this possible changes, one of the things I want to say very clearly is that what we have in Module 5 is what is currently in the rule and is currently what we know. I think it's very important to share with the growers that information. I also think it's very important to share with the growers that FDA has made these announcements. And so when we think about, what might FDA look at, all we have to go on is what they've said. That they might revisit compliance dates in the rule, that they might change some expectations. We don't have any idea what that means. Is it going to be that they're going to change the microbial water quality profile? Are they going to change sampling frequency, location, or timing? Are they going to change limits? Are they going to allow other methods? We don't know. I think the key thing is that if I can get this to come up anyway. I don't know, why sorry. I'm having a hard time with this. Oh, golly gee, sorry, my apologies. This is all me on my little mousy mouse. The real point here is that we have no idea what's coming. The best approach is to share the information that we have from FDA through their announcements that they've made, and really avoid making any assumptions. And the reason I started this slide by talking about what is currently in the rule and what is currently in the curriculum is that is information that is in the produce safety rule. And that's what we have right now, as well as these announcements that FDA has made. And I think that that's really important. I also think it's very important that we don't feed frustration that is going to be there for not knowing what the answer is. When you do a training, there's going to be growers that have been taking water samples for some time, and there's going to be growers that don't have water samples. So I think it's important to share what's in the rule so that growers know what's there. It's also important because if a change comes out, it will help growers understand what has changed if they know what's there currently. So I think that's very, very important. Here's a list of current compliance dates as we know them, and looking at, how those might change. But it's important to share what we know and where the information came from. I think that's a key point, is to let growers know where the information we're sharing came from so that they can look it up themselves if they're interested. You may want to remind participants about that June 6th announcement that said there is an intention to possibly extend these dates. Okay, so this is what we know. There may be an extension. In the meantime, we're going to have growers that have been sampling to meet buyer requirements. And the PSA put out a paper to help guide some of this discussion. And one of the things we said in there is that we don't want growers to stop testing their water, because many growers are using a method besides 1603, and we've had a lot of questions from growers asking us, well, should I just stop because I'm not using 1603? And the key thing is that if they're testing water to meet buyer requirements or to pass a third-party audit, you do not want to recommend that they stop testing their water because they need to do it for other purposes. And I think we need to be cognizant of the fact that the first implementation dates have not shown up yet. Those show up in January. And that growers are contending with meeting market requirements right now. So we have to be very careful about what we say. I think we also need to tell participants that these changes might be coming and that they should be paying attention to resources, including FDA and PSA websites, as well as many of you have your program websites that do these updates as well, but that they want to make sure they're getting solid information from someplace they can trust and not just groups that are making assumptions. I think that's what we want to avoid. We also want to avoid making recommendations about them making changes without information. We've had calls from people that say people told them they really needed to start building their microbial water quality profile right now, and they really needed to have 20 samples by January of 2018 or they would be outside of the rule. And that's not true. So I think it's really important to not make recommendations about things they need to change without further information or without, good information. Are there any questions about that?
Betsy, I did see a question come up in the chat box about following up with grower participants. And the question was, for people who have already attended the Produce Safety Alliance courses, is there going to be a mechanism once those changes happen to inform the growers what the new requirements may be?
And this person must have looked at our slide set before, because the next slide is talking about that exact thing. And there it is. Trainers, this slide is entitled Trainers Will Be Updated, but big shout out to Don, who was saying, well, the growers need updated as well. We're all going to need updated if something changes. Any new information we have, we're all going to need to know what that new information is and what the implications are. It's also important to point out that we're not sure if the new information is all going to come at the same time. I have not a clue about how this information is going to roll out. And so it may be that we just have to be nimble enough to make these changes over time. What the Produce Safety Alliance plans to do is to conduct webinars and develop additional educational materials for trainers, and it should say, and growers, to make sure everyone knows about the new information. FDA is really good about putting out fact sheets. We will do our best to collaborate with them. In the past, they have been willing to come on these calls as well as national calls. If you guys remember, years ago, back in 2012, 2013, we did a series of webinars with FDA going over each section of the draft rule. And so, you know, we would certainly engage in something similar to that if we could get that type of collaboration with FDA to make sure people can ask questions, can ask for clarification. I also want to point out that at IAFP this summer, Samira Sar did mention that FDA anticipated that draft guidance, make that clear, draft guidance would be available before the first implementation dates. So, you know, there will be some discussion to be had about draft guidance as well. So I think there's a lot of changes coming up. And what I'm hoping that that this has done is just given you guys some discussion about how to handle Module 5 with some of the new information we have. Are there any questions? Questions, discussion? Are you guys all feeling comfortable with 5? You're not having trouble with it? That's the important part. Okay, they're all asleep.
Can I clarify one thing, Betsy?
Absolutely, you can
This is
clarify.
All right. If you flip back up to that compliance date slide, if you can, I threw you a curveball and put a new chart in there that you hadn't seen. Those aren't the compliance dates from the produce safety rule. They're from that 2016 updated. What did they call? Clarification of compliance dates. That said that in addition to the 2 years you get by produce safety rule, you also get full 4 years to make your MWQP. So that's an example of what a non-small, not very small farm would be looking at in terms of allowable sampling schedules for their initial MWQP, which of course is likely to change. So this is all academic, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, and I did know that was actually from the new one. I think the other thing is that this is the one that says they must start sampling in 2018. But the examples you give, you could change how that distribution is. You could change that distribution up because it does not make stipulation about how many samples. It just says it should start in 2018. But yeah, that's a good point, and I appreciate that clarification. Any other thing you want to add, Don?
No, I think that was the big enough description of it all. I'm surprised that the people who have been writing to say, what should we do about 5 aren't speaking up, though. Maybe that just clarified it all for everybody.
Well, I am seeing some comments in the comment box about people saying, you know, I'm using the term "it's fluid," which I think we all maybe have different words we use to try and help the growers understand that things might change. That was one comment I saw, but I think it's as long as everybody is fine, then we're good. We just had gotten a few questions, which is why we wanted to touch on it for this call. Okay. And I do want to, specifically since Don mentioned the slides, as with all of our PSA stuff, it really is a team effort with people really working to get this information together. So I always want that to be clear. This isn't, you get to hear me talk today mostly because Gretchen is sick and she's going to take a nap after this meeting. But the team really does work to put this information together, and I really appreciate that approach to this. So thank you, Don and Connie and Gretchen. Any other questions? Okay. The next meeting is scheduled for October the 2nd, tentatively. If there is information you want us to cover on this call, please do let us know, because we're happy to work with other groups and get them to present information that may be of interest. You can see Gretchen left her email there if you want to submit any topics at all. Oops. Well, sorry, I am just having a mouse problem today. Here's the PSA website. Again, if you haven't joined the listserv, please do. You're all part of the educators listserv, or you wouldn't have gotten an invitation to this call. If you do know colleagues or others that you think would benefit from being in this group, please let them know so we can add them to the group, because I think it is good in terms of building collaboration and making sure we're all on the same page. Here's the PSA team again. Hopefully you all are having a good experience working with the PSA team. If you're not, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to thank everybody for their time. And if there's any last questions, I'll pause.
Betsy?
Yep.
That slide flashed by. What time is the conference or the webinar on the 1st or the 2nd?
It's October 2nd at 2 p.m. We try to have them at 2 p.m. EST.
Good.
Give our colleagues in Hawaii a chance to wake up. No, we actually do. We absolutely do take our colleagues in Hawaii into consideration here, so we try to have them in the afternoon.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Well, I hope you guys are all having a good summer. For anybody in the South, I hope you're not getting too much rain. Our thoughts go out to our colleagues who are certainly in the Texas area and suffering that severe flooding. I appreciate everybody's time, and if there's anything else, let us know. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.